We got now Andrew Montford to talk to over the $300 billion that countries like Britain have apparently agreed to pay poorer countries to help them with their carbon problem and net zero. Exactly what is going on? Andrew, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
So, to be honest, until, a couple of days ago, I didn't realise COP29 was still going on. You know, Starmer came home. I assumed everybody else had. But I guess I was wrong about that, because it turns out that, presumably, most of the 470 delegates that we took there stayed until the end of last week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it tends to run on a bit longer than the press's attention span. But, yeah, this is what usually happens. They come, they haven't been able to agree sort of swingeing reductions to carbon emissions because the Western world is worried about the economic situation. So they can come up with a promise of huge sums of money for the developing world. And yeah, it remains to be seen how much we're on the hook for. I'm actually rather concerned that Mr. Miliband hasn't said how much we're going to be paying out. But I guess the one thing people can draw some comfort from is that the history of these pledges is that they promised these hundreds of billions, but actually when push comes to shove, the money never materializes and it just doesn't happen. Right. So it's all a bit of a charade, and I wouldn't be too concerned about it. Although, Mr. Miliband does like to spend our money, so there is that ongoing concern.
Right. Well, the worry I've got is that they've got this model, it would seem, where they borrow sort of money that doesn't exist to give to people who don't want to spend it. I mean, is it all smoke and mirrors? What's going on then?
I mean, I think there will be some money goes, and it won't be put to good use. I think that's fair to say. I mean, people like to say that these climate finance pledges are taking money from poor people in rich countries and giving it to rich people in poor countries. Right. It may just disappear into somebody's back pocket and never be seen again. Yeah, that's quite likely. Right. And the fact of the matter is, if you're in Bangladesh, you're not going to start building wind farms or whatever they're expecting to be done with it. And they don't need money to adapt to climate change. Bangladesh, to take a very good example, has already done the major adaptation works it needs. It used to suffer from hurricanes, and they would get huge storm surges, which would flood all the fields. The fields are all behind barriers now, behind seawalls. Right. So they've adapted. It doesn't affect them anymore. So yeah, this money, I think, is. Yeah,
but the trouble with the fanatics, though, is that they say it's not about building a seawall; it's about stopping the sea from rising. King Canute style. So what?
Yeah,
they
well, of course,
do,
and to which I would throw back at them that Bangladesh again is one of the fastest growing countries in the world. Yeah. There is so much silt coming down the rivers that they're actually growing hundreds of square kilometres every decade. So, again, the fanatics are, well, just that. They say things to frighten people, yeah. Or maybe because they believe it themselves.
I think some of them do.
Rational.
I think some of them, because it's not rational at all. I mean, everybody knows it's not rational. Ed Miliband's off his head, What about this guy, Bill Esterson, who's the most senior backbencher charged with scrutinising the government's energy policy? He's basically come out and said over the weekend that people will absolutely have to adjust their habits to meet the UK's ambitious emissions goals for 2030. He says we'll definitely have to swap gas boilers out and bring heat pumps in. We'll definitely have to get electric cars to meet net zero goals, and if we don't do it, we'll never get there. Now, of course, most of us don't believe a word of any of it, and we don't think that they will ever get there anyway. And whenever I ask anyone what happens when we reach net zero, nobody seems to know the answer.
No, I mean, yeah, obviously Mr. Miliband is going to make sure that a fellow fanatic is in charge of the relevant select committee, and yeah, they will carry on not scrutinising the government's work. They will turn blind eyes. They will applaud from the sidelines, and nothing will happen. But I don't think there is not a cat's chance that we are going to hit a net zero grid by 2030. They're just we couldn't even make the heat pumps quickly enough, let alone install them or upgrade the grid to take them. It's not going to happen. The question is how much damage is going to be done before we realise that it's all been a horrible mistake and that we need to get back to fossil fuels.
Well, I keep thinking that somebody somewhere in government is going to wake up one morning and go, do you know what, this is all absolute and utter nonsense and we might as well say so. At least Kemi Badenoch has agreed that it's probably not a good idea to try and move as quickly as the Labour government is moving, but the Conservatives are still kind of wedded to it. Reform seems to be the only party that says it's a load of old rubbish. And Donald Trump, of course, is in that camp as well.
Yeah, I mean, the advent of Mr. Trump is going to be quite interesting because I think it will be a huge success in America. Their economy will do very well, whereas here we will be stuck in stagnation and depression. And I think there will be a backlash from the British public against our parliamentarians. But as you quite rightly say, the Conservatives are still wedded to it, and the party is still very divided. They have loads and loads of climate fanatics. So the party is probably not going to be capable of delivering change, even if it does get into power. So if you are worried about net zero and what it's going to do to the economy, then your only option probably is reform, because Labour, I don't think they even have any sceptics. So they are just fanatics to a man.
The Socialists don't allow you to have any scepticism. You have to believe in everything that they believe in. Otherwise, they don't want you around. Thank you very much indeed. Andrew Montford, Director of Net Zero Watch there.